Happy New Year! I'm Janice Fiamengo of the University of Ottawa, and my theme today is on being a female white knight. Recently, I came across a video by Sandman called Female White Knights, posted on December 15, 2015. Sandman is a MGTOW philosopher, and for anybody who doesn't know, MGTOW is a movement in which men go their own way, refusing to allow deference to women to define their identities and goals. In the video, Sandman warns his MGTOW viewers that female men's rights advocates should be regarded with a healthy degree of skepticism, or perhaps best ignored. They may do some good. In fact, he readily admits that Karen Straughn's videos helped to kickstart a lot of his thinking, but such women are also looking out for their own self-interests and are therefore not to be completely trusted. Sandman notes that, ironically, women have privilege in the manosphere as everywhere else, and many of them say nothing that male anti-feminists haven't already said, yet are enthusiastically praised for saying it and end up stealing the spotlight despite the lesser risk involved in their public statements. Some of these are youngish women looking for male adulation, Sandman speculates. Some are looking to hedge their bets, in a sense, to form allegiance with the men's rights movement in case feminist society collapses even sooner than expected. Some of these women, having benefited from feminism for a good part of their lives, are now concerned about their sons or about their own status in old age. It's nearly impossible, according to Sandman, for women to be the altruistic allies of men that they claim to be and for which a lot of men have offered grateful acknowledgement. More serious than women's dubious motives and the undeserved praise that they receive is the effect of female white knighting on men, especially young men. The danger, as Sandman sees it, is that these anti-feminist women will convince men in the MGTOW movement that all hope is not lost, that the long gender Cold War of the past 50 to 100 years can be called off, and that all they really need to do is search for an anti-feminist woman. But this is no different, according to Sandman, from the case of a lion who surprisingly gives up attacking a herd of zebras and starts defending the zebras, even attacking other lions to do so. The zebras are ecstatic, of course, thinking they've got a wonderful protector in the lion, and as a result, they get complacent. And in the end, this just makes the zebras even more vulnerable. Their lion protector, once the other lions have been vanquished, will turn on the zebras and dispatch them with great ease. Inherent in the analogy is the point Sandman goes on to spell out. Women might disguise their natures, but that nature is always the same, to take advantage of men, to prey on them, essentially. Female white knights are still women, after all, and can't help but use men's advocacy in their own interests. It's a compelling argument and an unverifiable one, focusing on such murky regions of the psyche as motive and unconscious desires. The sweeping claim about women's nature cannot be defeated, except perhaps by responding with another sweeping claim, which is that merely wishing really hard that men can stop wanting love and approval from women doesn't seem likely to make it happen. It is true, in my opinion, that female anti-feminists are given a far easier ride than male ones, and that men tend to shower praise on those few women who publicly call out the injustice of feminism. Those facts in themselves, however, do not necessarily mean either that women who want to expose an unjust ideology are necessarily playing a double game, or that male recognition of women's support will weaken the MGTOW movement, unless MGTOW prohibits any friendly feeling of men towards women. Now, without attempting to engage with the overall argument of Sandman, I want to think a bit about his claim in relation to my own white knighting, to explore whether my anti-feminist advocacy is grounded in self-interest. Of course, if I'm a master of deception, as he suggests, then everything I say here should be taken with a grain of salt. On one level, the claim about self-interest doesn't fit me that well. I'm a middle-aged woman with a secure academic position in a completely feminist-dominated environment. I have nothing to gain professionally and some friendships and career opportunities to lose for breaking with feminism. I already have a fantastic, super smart, and sexy husband who, although supportive of whatever I do, would be just as happy if I focus my energies on other subjects. I don't have any children to worry about, and although I would love for my friend Steve to profit from his work documenting the misandry of our time, I don't expect to make any money at it. I'm not under any illusions about my personal charisma when I speak as an anti-feminist, and actually when I rewatch the few lectures I've given, my toes curl at my deer in the headlights performance. So on professional and personal levels, my anti-feminism isn't particularly in my interest. But on another level, Sandman is absolutely right. I'm a white knight for men because I want to be one, and I'm doing it for me. I don't want to live any longer in a culture in which I and most people submit to lies about women's victimization and male privilege. It feels crazy and sick. I particularly don't want to live in a society in which every time I open a newspaper, I have to suppress a roar of disgust because there's yet another womanly demand for special privileges or government-sponsored perks, or more complaints, jealousies, and resentment directed at men. Just the other day, it was an article by Leah McLaren, a columnist at the Globe and Mail, one of Canada's national newspapers, about how women should be paid for what she called women's, quote, emotional labor. Things like sending thank you cards or ordering something online for her child. That's emotional labor, which she says is the next feminist frontier. Pretty soon, it seems, feminists will be marching in the street to demand that men's tax dollars fund doulas and birthing coaches to help women grunt and pant their way through such heroic exertions as phoning a neighbor to thank her for loaning a cup of sugar. I feel a wave of nausea coming on just thinking of it. You see, I'm at the point where I can hardly bear to read newspapers without fear of apoplectic fit. I definitely don't want to spend the next 20 or 30 years or however much longer I have left on this earth in a society that gives women permission, really encourages women, almost mandates them to be at their worst. Selfish, hypocritical, superficial, amoral, mean-spirited, manipulative, and vindictive. It's not good for my self-respect as a woman. I don't want to live in a culture that turns women into raging children, supposedly too scared to attend an astronomy conference or even walk down the street for fear of sexual harassment, but not too scared to lecture men on their evil, berate them, slander them, belittle them, and call for yet more laws and policies to make their lives more difficult, in addition to the discrimination they already face in hiring, employment, family court, healthcare, reproductive rights, educational opportunities, government services, military conscription, etc. I fear it's all turning me into a raving misogynist, and that can't be good for my mental health. I don't want to spend the remainder of my teaching career watching the girls in my classes become ever more inclined to blame every personal failure or ordinary life setback or challenge on, quote, institutionalized sexism, while the boys become ever quieter, more apathetic, more unsure of themselves, more awkward, apologetic, ashamed, sad, angry, and adrift. It's painful and infuriating to witness, and I suspect that one day soon I might go ballistic and launch into a gynophobic tirade in my class that will lead to my being forced to take a series of sensitivity workshops and issue a public apology. On the other hand, when I see or hear about guys being guys, whether that's working in a science lab or on a construction site, doing amazing stunts on their bicycles or guitars, fixing things, telling jokes, playing sports, teaching classes, parenting their children, being masculine, I like their energy and I want it in the world, whether that has anything to do with me personally or not. Furthermore, it's definitely in my self-interest to live in a sane world, A world in which the most talented, capable, and hardworking people, often men as it turns out, are in charge. A world that holds me and other women to a standard of achievement rather than giving us top jobs and special perks just because we're women. I want all the perks done away with, for good, because they're a moral hazard to me and to all women. Most fundamentally, I don't want to live in a world that makes me so disgusted and repulsed by the behavior of my own sex that it forces me to wonder whether I'm really a selfish, narcissistic monster, too. There sure do seem to be a lot of nasty narcissists out there, enabled by a society gone mad over poor woman hysteria. When I read that a recent American survey found that 44% of college women don't believe a nod of agreement is sufficient to count as sexual consent. In other words, that a woman who nodded to the boy she's making out with can later claim she was raped. When I read about cases such as that involving Cassandra Kennedy, who lied about her father sexually abusing her to punish him, and only admitted her lie after her father spent 9 years in jail, and nothing is going to happen to her because, you guessed it, if she were punished, it might prevent other liars from coming forward to put their innocent fathers in jail. When I read about a woman, Tiffany Stevens, getting off with a probationary sentence for paying a man to kill her husband and who still retains custody of their child. When I see a statement by a wealthy woman named Diane Smith-Gander, CEO of a company called Transfield in Australia, stating with relish that well-qualified men will simply have to lose their jobs to make it possible for all government boards to have 50% female representation. When she has the nerve to say of the men, they're not going to want to lose their gig, and that's a sad and sorry thing, but that's just the way it is. When I read this and so much more, I am sickened and humiliated and almost totally turned off by the female half of humanity. Thank God for Karen and Daphne and Janet and others. Ultimately, I just don't want the horror of seeing men crippled in the way feminism has crippled them. I can't be who I want to be in the world if that's being done to men. So I guess I do want to use men in the men's movement for my own interests. Whether it's through MGTOW or men's rights, it's up to you. But yes, I definitely want you to take back your lives and power and your pride for me, because I will enjoy that selfishly.